What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down one of the best route runners in college football. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver or quarterback and would like to train with us this off season, we are going to be traveling out to 13 more states across the country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. We're going to be in Phoenix, Arizona this weekend, but the next camp we're going to be doing will be in Charlotte, North Carolina, then Dallas, Texas, the DMV, St. Louis, Honolulu, Boston, Cleveland, Austin, Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles. So if you guys would like to come out, get some work in with us, and we're in one of those 13 cities, check out that very first link in the description below for more information and how you could sign up. We would love to have you out there. Let's get started with this video. So we're going to be looking at some routes here from wide receiver out of North Carolina State, Thayer Thomas. So this guy's incredibly shifty. The way he runs routes reminds me a lot of Kupp, and that's what we're going to be breaking down today. So the first route is going to be something called a return route. So it's very similar to like a whip route, except it's the opposite way. So like, what's a whip route or a pivot route for all of you that maybe don't know? That's where you run on a slant, you break to the slant for 3 steps, and then you whip back to the outside. You keep your hips and your shoulders facing the line of scrimmage and facing the quarterback, and you whip to the outside. So a return route is pretty much the same thing, but instead you're going out first. So you're breaking to the out, then whipping back to the inside. Some people call this a T route. I know this as a return route. So let's play this thing full speed, and then we'll break it down. So he comes off the ball, attacks him, and he makes it look exactly like an out route. So anytime that we are running routes, the thing about being a technician, especially if you're maybe not the biggest guy in the world, let's say you're a shorter wide receiver, let's say maybe you're not the fastest wide receiver in the world, you have one thing that can help you out, and that is your route running and being able to sell certain routes and make them look the same. So if you had to run a 5-yard out, like let's say you're right on the goal line was your break point, you had to break at the goal line and break on an out route. How would you run that route versus this specific look? Because that's what we want to make it look like, especially when I'm running a double move. I have to make it look like the first route first. So you'd want to attack his leverage, right? You would want to threaten him. You'd want to close the gap. You'd want to threaten his leverage to the inside and burst outside and get vertical to your depth, which would be the goal line. So that's exactly how we would have to run a return route or any route that builds off of a 5-yard out. Even if it was like a 5-yard out and then up, or maybe like a stick nod concept, you would run it the exact same way. You'd attack him, then let's burst up to the depth. Because all great route runners can make their routes look the same, fellas. That is something that you have to do, and it's something that you can play around with as well. It does not have to be automatically this 5-yard out situation. It could be any situation. But the best guys, they pair their routes together. So he attacks him. Now, anytime on a double move, fellas, there are 3 things that are going to get you separation. Whether you're running a post corner, which is another route that we're going to talk about later, whether you're running an out and up, a slant and go, you have to do these 3 things. Number 1, you got to have speed. Because if this DB doesn't believe that you're actually running to the 5-yard out, actually running to the slant on a sluggo, he's not going to bite. He's just going to sit. So when Thomas breaks off at the end of this out route, you see how much speed he has. There's quickness there. Now, number 2, this was only kind of like a 1-step return route, but normally what you would want to do is make sure your stride doesn't take choppy, or your stride doesn't shorten. You don't take choppy steps. What a lot of guys will do, especially on this return route, especially on a whip route, that first break will be very choppy. They'll take half strides because they're preparing for the break point. We can't prepare for the break point. We got to trust that my hips, my cut, whatever it's going to be is what gets me out of the break. So I got to make sure I have speed, got to have stride, and you see how he fully commits his hips and his shoulders to the out route. Because that is what a DB in man coverage is going to be looking at. He is going to be watching my hip. So if I can commit to it, if I can run hard and I can run full stride, that is what will get that DB to bite. And then it's just a matter of changing direction to create that space. That is a textbook return route there from Thayer Thomas. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. So remember, fellas, we are pairing my routes together. Make your routes, make your releases, make it look like something else that you do. That will get in the DB's head. And when we're in the DB's head rent-free, we will be unguardable. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Thayer Thomas working that return route. So now, next example here, this is going to be, I don't really necessarily know how you would classify this. You could consider this route as like a seam route. You could consider it as like a slant route, like maybe on the skinnier side, like there's a middle linebacker in the middle of the field and we want to stay away from him. But nonetheless, this is how you would run either one of those routes. So let's play at full speed. So we got this kind of like outside leverage look. Thomas does a great job with this crossover move. Now, this is what I want to mainly focus on. Anytime that a DB is guarding you in press coverage, if you want to try to get him to move, you want to try to get him to bite to a fake, you have to threaten him outside of his frame. So what do I mean by that? So let's talk about the situation here. Thomas is lined up obviously out of the slot because here you can see the hash mark, so his split is obviously cut down. A smart DB, anytime that it's one-on-ones, will notice that, okay, his split is cut down. I am probably going to be playing outside leverage because I'm expecting an outside route. Why would he cut his split down, or why would he line up out of the slot in one-on-ones to run a slant, to run a dig, a post, whatever it might be? Now, we can do this as a wide receiver and still run that slant, still run that seam, because those are two slot routes that you can do. But in a real game situation, this guy's probably going to have help over the middle. He's probably going to have a free safety right there. So a lot of you, I know what you're thinking. Well, he's outside leverage. Why not just take off and go run? Because you're going to run right into the safety. So we need to do something that is going to threaten his leverage, which is to the outside. So that's where Thayer Thomas comes at him with this release. So he attacks him and he closes the distance. This DB technique right here, fellas, is called catch technique. Catch technique is when you have maybe like 2 yards of space, 1 to 2 yards of space between us and the wide receiver from a DB perspective. And what we're hoping from a DB perspective is that this guy just tries to run around us so we could get hands, essentially catch him, quote unquote, and reroute him. So like, let's say Thomas had to run like a 10-yard out. This DB is hoping that he just tries to run around him to the inside or to the outside, and he could get hands and really force him off of his platform. So as a wide receiver, to make this DB uncomfortable in this catch technique, I got to close the space. Anytime that there is cushion, I want to bring that line of scrimmage to the DB. So now when we close the space with him, that's what makes him uncomfortable. That's what makes him more likely to bite on a certain fake. But I have to make sure that I'm selling the fake correctly. So anytime that you're doing a press release, whether this DB's right up in your face, whether he's off in catch technique, you want to think of it like driving lanes. I'm sure all of you have driven before. Maybe not driven yourself, but you've been in a car, and you've probably seen 3 separate lanes on a highway. You got a lane here, you got a middle lane, and then you got a far right lane. If I am trying to make a DB move to the far left lane, I actually have to step to the far left lane with my foot. I don't want to be doing this. What so many wide receivers will do is they do all this lateral movement and they try to sell with just their head and their shoulders. I actually need to step outside of his frame. My hips and my shoulders need to actually look like I'm going to the outside, because this position right here is what forces that DB to have to move, because he has to honor it. He's watching your hips. He's making sure that you're not, if you stay square and you're just doing all this fancy movement that goes side to side, that DB's not going to do anything. He is taught to just sit and watch your hips. But if we can actually step, we can bring my hip with my cut so it's not way outside my frame. That is what will get that DB to bite, and that can get me separation. So fellas, anytime we're working that press release, just make sure that we are always threatening the DB. If there's space, let's close this space. And if I can step outside his frame, let's step outside of his frame. The only exception to where a lateral move would be okay is if when that DB is right up on that line of scrimmage right in your face. And if you wanted to do something like a split release where you kind of freeze him, you want to give like a quick wide step, those are and even on a wide step, you want to attack him vertical. But we always want to be threatening the DB. Whether it's inside, whether it's outside, let's work to get outside of his frame. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Thomas working that crossover and then winning on that seam. All right, so now next route I want to talk about here is a post and go. So I want to talk about this post and go because this is a route that you will see you see it more so at the college level, I would say. I don't, in the NFL level, obviously, but you don't see it too much in high school or youth ball. I would treat this, though, like, because I know you guys in high school or youth ball run a lot of sluggos. You guys run a lot of post corners. I would treat it the exact same way. And we're going to look at a post corner from Thayer Thomas right after this as well. But I want to talk to you about how your eyes are not the most important thing when selling a double move route. Now, I know that sounds foreign to a lot of you, but I'm going to explain why. Eyes certainly help, but I'm going to explain why. So let's play this full speed. He's out of the slot here, breaks to the post, and then you see how he gets that DB to stumble and able to win on that post and go route. So let's talk about this, right? So we got a situation where this is a safety lined up over a slot wide receiver. So if you're out of the slot, you know this look. Linebackers maybe shaded to the inside. Maybe you got to run a corner post. Maybe you got to run just like a seam. Maybe you just got to run a straight up corner. It turns into pretty much off man coverage with this safety and us. So the same principles would apply as if I had this linebacker pressed up right in front of my face. He is watching what with his eyes? His hips, right? He's watching the wide receiver's hips. So anytime that I'm working a double move, anytime that I'm working a corner route, a post route, and I'm trying to get separation, I need to sell that thing, not with my eyes. DB's not supposed to be looking there. I'm supposed to sell with my body. So when he breaks to this post route here, I want you to see how his hips and shoulders commit. His eyes are still looking forward, but the hips and the shoulders commit. He has speed to it. His stride doesn't change. He's not taking choppy steps. He's actually gaining ground. Those are all the things that will get a DB to crash. Now, could he have sold with his eyes? Absolutely. If you look back to the quarterback, that's only going to help you get open in case you get an undisciplined DB. But I've seen a lot of wide receivers. They will break on a double move. They'll snap their eyes to the quarterback, but their shoulders and their hips are drifting back upfield, especially on routes like a post corner where it's a harder break. You have to commit your upper body. That's got to be first. You got to have speed, stride, body language. Eyes should be the icing on the cake. You still should look with your eyes, but that's not the most important thing to get a disciplined DB. So on any double move, make sure we are committing, fellas. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job selling that post route and being able to create separation on that go portion of this thing. And another thing I want to add too, you see how he didn't look back for the ball right away. He didn't beat the DB, then look back for it. He kept that head down and accelerated. That is what we need to finish that double move. And it's an out and up. It's a sluggo. Let's keep that head down unless we are on the goal line, and let's create that separation. So now, like I said, we're going to be talking about a post corner. Kind of the same idea here, but I would say this is one of those where this is an undisciplined DB. Right? So a DB is supposed to have disciplined eyes, right? Now, I include this because of the last example, but when you're running a post corner, obviously when you break to the post, you're selling it for a hard 3 steps. So you're taking full 3 steps, committing the hips and shoulders, running hard, and possibly snapping your eyes. So on this one, Thayer Thomas snaps his eyes, but his hips and shoulders aren't committed to the post. Now, this DB, we're going to talk about something called eye discipline here, and that's why he's able to get open. So let's talk about it. This is the difference. So he breaks up to the top of the route. He breaks to this post, but look at where his hips and shoulders are. His hips and shoulders are kind of drifting back to the corner before he puts that last foot in the ground. But his eyes are looking, right? But let's look at where the DB's eyes are. DB's eyes are high. And when the DBs don't have disciplined eyes looking at the hips of the wide receiver, this is what's going to happen. So fellas, anytime that we break to the post, to make sure that we don't get locked up, if I'm facing a disciplined DB, those hips and shoulders need to be fully turned. Eyes can certainly help, but the body language is more important. Sell with the eyes and the body language if that makes you feel better, but the hips and shoulders have to commit on any double move. This route probably should have been more covered than what it was. Still a great job taking the inside release. Still a great job with speed to the post, stride to the post. But remember, body language is always most important. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Again, great job getting separation, but little details can clean it up against a more disciplined DB. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. If you guys would like any types of tips or advice that we can help you out with, like I said, our line's always open. Feel free to reach out to us anytime. And again, if you'd like to train with us this offseason, we're coming out to 13 more states across the country. So check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out. I'll see you guys next time.